Today, we're diving into the early life of a truly remarkable figure, A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. You probably know him as the brilliant scientist who became India's 11th president. But in this explainer, we're going to explore the humble beginnings that shaped one of the country's most beloved leaders.
It's a question we all wonder about, right? Are they forged in these huge, world-changing events? Or is it something quieter, something that happens in the everyday lessons of childhood? Well, for Abdul Kalam, the answer is definitely the second one.
For him, it all starts in the small island town of Rameswaram. This is where the seeds of his incredible journey were planted, in some of the most humble circumstances you can imagine.
So let's go back. His story really begins with these core values that were instilled in him right from his very first days there in Rameswaram.
Kalam always described his childhood as completely secure, both in a material and an emotional sense. His father, Jai Nolabuddin, didn't have much formal education, but Kalam said he had this, quote, great innate wisdom and a true generosity of spirit. And his mother, Ashiyama, she was so generous that Kalam was pretty sure more outsiders ate with their family every day than their own family members. They didn't have luxuries, but every single necessity, food, medicine, clothes, it was always there.
Then World War II hits, and it brings this strange opportunity. All of a sudden, there's a huge demand for tamarind seeds in the market, so young Kalam would go out, collect the seeds, and sell them to a shop on his street. And what did he earn? He called it the princely sum of 1 anna a day, his very first earnings. But his first real wages, his first proper job, came from his cousin Samsudin. Because of the war, trains weren't stopping at Rameswaram anymore, so newspapers had to be thrown out from the moving train cars. Samsudin needed a helper to catch these bundles, and young Kalam got the job. He wrote about it decades later, saying, "I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. You never forget that feeling."
Now, this is where things get really interesting. The social fabric of Rameswaram at that time was incredible, and it deeply, deeply shaped Kalam's entire worldview. Get this, Kalam's 3 best friends were all from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. In fact, one of them, Ramanatha Sastri, was the son of the high priest of the famous Rameswaram temple. But, as Kalam himself said, they never, not once, felt any difference between them because of religion. Their friendship was just built on being friends, not on division.
And this harmony wasn't just with friends, it was right there in his own home. His Muslim family would actually arrange the boats for the big annual Hindu ceremony, the Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam. And at night, the bedtime stories his mother and grandmother told weren't just from one faith. They were tales from the Ramayana, right alongside stories about the life of the prophet. Just beautiful.
But you know, that kind of childhood innocence, it was about to face its first real test. So when Kalam was in the 5th grade, a new teacher came to town. Now Kalam, who wore a cap that marked him as Muslim, always sat in the front row, right next to his best friend, Ramanatha Sastri, who wore the sacred thread of a Brahmin. Well, this new teacher just couldn't stand the sight of it. He ordered Kalam to get up and move to the back bench. And the image of his friend, Ramanatha, just openly weeping as he walked to the back, that was something Kalam said he never, ever forgot.
But the story doesn't end there, not even close. After the boys went home and told their parents, Ramanatha's father, the high priest, Lakshmana Sastri, he summoned the teacher. And in front of both boys, he told the teacher, point blank, not to spread the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance. He gave him an ultimatum, either apologize or leave the island for good. You know what? The teacher didn't just regret it, he was completely reformed by the priest's conviction.
And that wasn't the only powerful lesson he learned from a teacher. Kalam's science teacher was a man who was actively trying to build bridges, going against the social norms of the time.
This science teacher, Siva Subramania Iyer, was an Orthodox Brahmin himself, but Kalam called him something of a rebel. One day, he invited Kalam to his house for dinner. His wife, who was very conservative, was horrified. The idea of a Muslim boy in her ritually pure kitchen? No way. She refused to serve him. So what did the teacher do? He wasn't fazed. He served Kalam with his own hands, sat down right beside him, and they ate together, all while his wife watched from the kitchen door. Kalam said he wondered if she noticed anything different about the way he ate his rice or drank his water. When the teacher invited him back the next week, Kalam was a bit hesitant, but his teacher was firm. He said, "Once you decide to change the system, such problems have to be confronted." And the result? The very next week, it was the teacher's wife who took Kalam inside her kitchen and served him food with her own 2 hands. A quiet,
but absolutely profound change of heart.
And it was this very same teacher, Siva Subramani IR, who would unknowingly put Kalam on the path that would define his entire life.
So one day in class, the teacher is up at the blackboard, explaining the principles of flight. He's drawing diagrams of wings, the tail, the body, but the students just weren't getting it. The lesson wasn't landing.
So, what did he do? He didn't just try to explain it again with more words. Nope. Instead, he took the entire class down to the seashore. And there, he just pointed up. He showed them seabirds in actual flight, soaring, flapping, gliding in these amazing formations. The theory suddenly became real.
For young Kalam, this was like a lightning bolt. It was the moment everything just clicked into place. He would later say of that experience, "I understood all about birds' dynamics. That day, my future was decided. My destiny was changed." Right there on the shores of Rameswaram, the future missile man of India had just found his calling.
So, with this new purpose burning inside him, Kalam knew he had to leave his small island to keep studying. The next step was at the district headquarters. He went to his father to ask for permission, and his father, almost thinking out loud, just got it immediately. He told his son, "Abul, I know you have to go away to grow." And then he offered this absolutely beautiful metaphor about the seagull, how it has to fly alone across the sun, without a nest, to find its own way.
And to comfort his wife, who was hesitant to let her son go, Kalam's father, this man with no formal education, quoted the poet Khalil Gibran. He shared this profound piece of wisdom, understanding that children ultimately have their own paths to forge and their own thoughts to think. It was the ultimate blessing of freedom and trust.
So, from a home built on security and generosity, to friendships that smashed social barriers, and teachers who both challenged prejudice and sparked a lifelong destiny. These were the simple yet incredibly powerful lessons from a small island that helped make a great leader. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the quiet, formative moments that have defined your own story?